Jeff Richardson invites you to listen to Foolish Wits, the only show where two funny leftists talk Shakespeare, comedy, writing, social issues, and more. Find out more at jeffsawesomepods.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2. The co-host Switcheroo, the rereading, return to Westeros HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from 1996. I was going to say too hot for a slaver's face, which melts, but that didn't really flow. In these chapters, which are 26 and 27, Jon and Daenerys, Jon agonizes over how much he loves fucking versus how fucking is super duper not allowed if he is a man of the Night's Watch. And Daenerys struggles with getting all of these dudes to shut the fuck up while she executes a genius plan. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right. So we'll start with Jon.
But only because we have to.
Rashawn, guys, preciously was talking about how uncomfortable the sex scenes were in this, and that basically she hoped there wouldn't be too much more of it, and I had to inform her that there is a lot more uncomfortableness, much more acute uncomfortableness ahead. So yeah, just be ready for that, because there's there's a couple things that you just have to say two words and everybody knows exactly what you're referring to, and
oh no
yeah.
Well, I want to just state for the record that I am not looking forward to any of that.
I am, like, perversely now, because I get to share that with you. Because, yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
What did you think of these chapters?
The Jon one was fun. I mean, because it's you know, it's dopey in a lot of ways, but he is having a real and earnest struggle. Mm-hmm. And how quickly he swings back and forth from, like, this is awful and I'm only going to do it the one time to, like, we did it 3 more times that night and then 2 more times the next morning. And it just really, like, for me, it was funny because it reminded me of being, like, a horny, like, teenager.
Yep.
Granted, I was like a horny late-age teenager, you know. I didn't start, you know, being out and about in the world until I was already 18. But that sort of, you know, that sort of how quickly you go from, like, not have ever fucked to, like, oh, this is fucking, to, oh, I want to do this and only this all the time.
Yep.
It's really, really fast.
Yep.
And so this made me laugh because I was just like, yeah, I remember. But he's so cute, though. He's really, really, like, struggling because he took these vows and the vows meant something to him. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that this is actually complicated for him. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know? And then Ygritte is just funny. And then the fucking... the Lord's kiss, like, which also, I guess, implies that they just don't go down on women on the other side of the wall. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, do they not, like, give dudes head? Like, the wildlings not know what it's like to get head? Because that seems a horrible way to live. Right? I just suddenly felt really sad for the entire society outside the wall.
I could see it just being too goddamn cold. You have to be fully naked and sort of like there's like more maneuvering, I think, that would have to happen. And just it hasn't occurred to me because I just want to stay under these warm blankets while we do this, though, you know? I'm good. But I think that is the implication because, like, after she says, can you do it again? She says something like, and I'll see if you like it too, which sounded like she was saying, I'll give you head and we'll see if it works for you the way it definitely works for me. But I couldn't quite tell if that's what she meant. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay. So, yeah, it starts off like with him recalling, like he's looking at all of these different constellations and just thinking about how different it is for her. Like some of the things are really similar and some of them she has a completely different name for it, or there's like certain implications for how a conjunction of these like two constellations work and what that means and whatnot. And when the thief was in the Moon Maid, that was a propitious time for a man to steal a woman, Ygritte insisted. Like the night you stole me, the thief was bright that night. And he is like, I didn't, though. I didn't steal you. He keeps arguing
he
with
keeps
her about
doing
this.
And it's so, that is really funny to me because it is clear that the idea of stealing a person means something very different to Jon than it does to her, because she is just like, I don't understand why you keep fighting this. And he's like, I didn't even know you were a girl, and she, you know, only until I had a knife out. And she's like, that doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, I like too that at one point she's like, and I was telling you that story about fucking, and I thought for sure you would understand that I was saying, hey, can we fuck? And you just didn't? And I was like, oh wow, that shit was early. It started for her, where she was just like, ooh, I kind of like this one, all right. I kind of enjoy that. Yeah,
like clearly for Ygritte, the way that things unfolded were not on the timeline that she expected or wanted.
No.
You know, this moment where he steals her to Ygritte is like, all right, you got me, let's go. And Jon is just like, but I don't got you though. Like, it didn't mean to, I mean, okay, I got you, but I didn't mean to get you, like, air quotes, mean to get you.
I really enjoy the, like, yeah, he seems to think that there's an implication to that's like dishonorable, and she's just like, that is just straight up how it's done. I don't get your baggage with this, just you know.
She even goes as far as to say, like, because later on there's a conversation between them about I think it's when they're talking about whether, you know, when he lost his virginity and when she lost hers, and he brings up like a person, he's like, oh, so it wasn't so and so, and she's just like, oh no, that'd be like fucking my brother. What are you talking about? Because he doesn't understand the sort of way the family sort of structure works. Yeah. And she says one of the things about stealing is you want to bring someone back that's going to be strong and like an asset, you know.
And you want somebody that's not from the same bloodline. Because her thing is just like, we're not like technically related, but we're from the same village, and everybody from the village is related somehow. So you got to bring in some new blood that isn't going to cause birth defects and shit.
And she's still salty to the guy she lost her virginity to, like tried to fight for her. He got hurt like one time and never came back. She's like, pussy, he got his arm broken one time and I never heard from him again.
He was weak. And I was kind of wondering, like, would Jon try a second time? I kind of feel like no. So, I don't know. Jon seems like he's probably weak according to your estimation, but I guess that's fine.
We also get him saying goodbye to Ghost in this chapter, which
I hate this.
I feel like is definitely a departure from how things went on the show.
I don't recall, I'll be honest.
I was trying to remember when they separate for the first time on the show, and it's hard because now that we're deep into this book, things have really started to veer off. So I can't even like line up like chronologically where we are exactly in the show compared to the book. You know what I mean? but it feels like Ghost was with Jon for longer than, if I think of this book as being season 3, you know.
Yeah.
And we're like, not, maybe like a third of the way through at this point. I feel like Ghost was still with him in the show up at this point, but
we're just approaching a third of the way, not even quite there.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well. But yeah, no, here he's just there about to travel someplace where I guess Jon is like, you literally can't follow me here. There's not a way for you to walk, I guess.
That was the part, I guess it's like in the tunnels? Is that what he's worried about?
Yeah, he says, where is it exactly? He says that there's not going to be, oh my God, I can't find it.
Yeah. Well,
but it's like
it's
like a description of the terrain they're about to cross. And it sounds like it's just something that he doesn't think the direwolf can manage. I wish I could find it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Ghost licked his face, his rough, wet tongue rasping against the scabs where the eagle's talons had ripped Jon's cheek, and I was kind of like, ugh. I don't know why, but that description of it rasping against the scabs, I was like, on the morrow we go over, there's no steps. Oh, right, because they're going to be like climbing. There's no steps, no cage and crane, no way for me to get you to the other side. We have to part. Do you understand? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just like that moment in the sort of, in your hero's quest when the band has to, like, split in to 2s or 3s for whatever reason, you know? Yeah, and I was bummed out about this. And then he's trying to somehow communicate where Ghost should go, which is back to Castle Black. And he's trying to, like, mind meld to get, and there's no way for him to know. And then Ghost just sort of bounds off. And I feel like we're not going to see him for a while, and it makes me sad. He also talks about the dream he had the one time, and that he's got, that they're starting to call him a warg, some of the wildlings.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I don't think that really fits. I'm not like, I'm
not in control of it.
Yeah. But he had the dream the one time, and it did kind of end up happening. But, like, does that still count?
And that's a valid question. I always appreciate when people in stories actually acknowledge that, well, okay, I don't know if that's what it is, but there's certainly something fucking weird going on. Because sometimes it'll just be, like, a character will be in denial about something in a way that I'm genuinely like, Are you really going to argue about this right now? Like, we all can tell what's happening. Right. I don't want to sit here waiting for you to fucking catch up. And I think that we talked about that with, like, Corin Halfhand immediately being like, all right, what was in the dream? And taking that shit dead serious. Like, yeah. There's no question for him. That is something that is real, and we need to acknowledge it and figure out what to do about it, as if it were something we saw with our own eyes.
Sparing us that, like, interminable conversation of, like, the one person trying to convince the other person that they should really listen. And you just have to suffer through the whole thing until they finally get on board and decide to listen to the fucking information that's available.
Yep. Yeah, because, like, honestly, I don't know about y'all's experience with this, but I am surrounded by people that if I was like, I had a dream that this was happening, and it was something extremely specific and relevant to our lives. There is nary a soul other than maybe Owen that would be like, well, that was just a dream. I think literally everybody that I am friends with would be like, huh. And not necessarily be like, well, that's magic and it's real. But they would be like, that's something that maybe we'll just keep in mind kind of thing. It's just not... It's always written as if, like, well, in the real world, people wouldn't buy it. And I'm like, people are still extremely superstitious.
Oh, my God.
To this day. It is absolutely something people believe.
Have you seen America? There's literally nothing we won't buy.
Yep.
You can just tell us practically anything, and you're going to find a fair number of people who are like, yep, that sounds right to me. That checks out. That checks out. Like, it doesn't matter how bonkers the story you're telling is.
Yep.
There are people always like, you know what? Yeah, I think that they are lizards. Yes.
You know? I think the moon is just a projection.
The earth is indeed flat.
Yep. Oh, my God.
And if you sheeple would just wake up.
It's so depressing, you guys, but seriously. And there's like whole entire YouTube channels that are dedicated to people who are allegedly like predicting the direction the country is going to go in based on their own like psychic response to things. And my mom is super into those channels. And, you know, it's just the sort of thing that like, it feels like, well, it's so wild, but the thing that they keep predicting is going to happen is the thing that everybody really wants to happen. Who would have thought that those would just always line up all the time?
It's funny how that works.
You know? But yeah, so I just find it to be frustrating when it's treated like, well, if we're going to be realistic about it, people would be in doubt. And it's like, actually, if we're going to be realistic about it, most people will buy it. And there will be a few people who think they're idiots for it. And that's really more the ratio that we have going on. But anyway. So he says this all to Ghost, and Ghost like sort of pricks his ears up and then runs off. And Jon is just like, man, I cannot tell if he understood me and that's why he ran away, or if he just saw a fucking hare run by and was like, oh shit. I don't know. And I think it is that he heard and understood.
I love that.
I think so, but
yeah.
You know,
I like to believe that he understood, because I feel like it's fair to believe that, because it's been set up that these direwolves are, you know, extraordinary in a lot of different ways, and that they have really, you know, keen understanding of their counterparts. I don't even want to call them like their owners or their masters, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a stretch to believe that, Ghost understood what the fuck's up. And, you know, and that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I know he can probably take care of himself better than many of our other characters that I'm concerned about, so I probably shouldn't have to worry that much about Ghost. Yeah. But here I am, sitting here, being worried. Anyway.
It's fair. He just feels very vulnerable, even though he's got speed and teeth, and he's also, like, white, so he melts into the snow, which is dope. He's
also giant. Like, I keep forgetting the size of these direwolves, you know? I can't help but just think of them as, you know, the size of a regular pet. So he's probably going to be just fine.
Yeah, likely. So he takes off, and I really enjoy this moment where he's thinking about how the terrain makes it really easy for people to sneak up. And he says, for wildling raiders to sneak up, oh, like us, like me.
Yeah.
And he just has a moment of like, oh.
Yeah,
oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that keeps coming to, like, nip at his heels a couple times in this chapter. The sort of way he views himself as separate, you know, from the wildlings, because he is, but then also he's not anymore. Like, the whole thing about actually finally giving in and sleeping with Ygritte the first time, and that he only did it to prove his loyalty and to prove that he had really turned his back on the Night's Watch and the vows that he took, you know. And that anybody could understand that it was okay to break his vows in this circumstance. And then later, when he's actually enjoying all the fucking, there's like, he starts to think about Ned a little bit, and like, you know, well, even the great Ned Stark stumbled that one time, you know, when he was making a bastard son. Yeah, he's just going through a lot internally, trying to reconcile his actions, and then how much he's enjoying his actions with Ygritte, and the sort of loyalty to Westeros and the realm and the Night's Watch. And, he's just so conflicted right now.
I really do enjoy that, like, he sees himself as separate, but then any of the wildlings suggest that he sees himself as separate, and he seems to get genuinely, like, offended.
Yeah, yeah.
In a very, like, George Costanza, it's not a lie if you believe it kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I'll admit, I was a little, like when he gets called out later, when they start asking him for, like, hardcore details about the Night's Watch at the other towers and shit, and someone is like, you can't trust him, and he gets so salty about it.
He does.
I, like, bought it. I was like, oh, he, like, that quick, he is right back in that role, and he's like, you know, how dare you accuse me of lying? But, like, you are lying.
You are, though, bud.
You know, like, maybe not. And he even gets caught, like, trying to be cute with his lies. And the one guy is like, nah. He's counting how many it was before the fucking fight at the fist.
Yes. That's the part that gets me every time, is that they not only know he's lying, it seems like they know the function of his lies, like the way he's doing it. I'm just like, man, I hate that they're like this good at this. They really can see through him in a way that feels almost like, are you doing something, Jon, to like tip them off? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a really nice balance of them simultaneously being like, we cannot trust him. Us as the readers knowing that they are correct. They cannot trust him. But also that he's still allowed to participate and be part of their community, and kind of has a, you know, we're going to let you ride with us until you show us for certain that you actually are a traitor, you know.
Right.
So they're letting him, you know, live, but they don't trust him at all. And he's trying to constantly prove that they can trust him, even though we all know they can't. It's just such a...
He's literally sitting here thinking, I should have fucking killed Mance Rayder that one time. Damn it. I can't believe I didn't do it.
And then, like, 2 minutes later, someone's suggesting he's lying about numbers, and he's just, how dare you, sir? You know?
Indignant. So, yeah, he remembers the first time that they had sex, and it's really funny because she still says, you know nothing, while they're having sex, but then it's like, but I'll teach you. I don't know why I found that so funny. You know nothing, Jon Snow, but I can show you. Let me tell you, listening to the sex scenes being like narrated by fucking what's his face?
That never. Oh my god, I never even thought of that until you just said it.
Especially because
that's got to be horrible.
Gives her this sort of like accent that all I could picture was Fat Bastard from those Austin Powers movies.
Oh no!
It was. It's like not quite piratey, but there's a broguish sort of thing going on, and I just kept like being so distracted. I was listening to this with Owen, and just cracking up at one point. There's a moment where it says, his lips on hers, his hand sliding under her doeskin shirt to find a breast, but he says it to find a breast. And he says breast so, like, aggressively. And I was just like, why? No. But yeah, it is also kind of funny. So don't recommend, but, like, kind of recommend.
I just want to, the only thing I'm really going to say about any of this, as far as the sex scenes go, is that there is just an uncomfortable amount of using the mound.
I noticed that too. What the fuck is mound? Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. Of all the ways to depersonalize a woman's, you know, sexual or, you know, sex genitalia or whatever, like, just, we're just going to give it a name. We'll just, the mound. Her mound. And it just, you might as well just say all that junk over there. You know, she rubbed her junk on him, and then he was hard. Like,
it's interesting too because like when we're in like Tyrion's POV, it's cunt. He says cunt. Mm-hmm. So it feels like we're choosing this because this is how Jon would word it, because he is like a kid and uncomfortable. So he's euphemizing. And I don't know if that's me just sort of saying that when it's simply Martin was in a particular mood and used different wording this time, but it feels like it's the sort of way that a boy who's like really inexperienced and trying to be respectful.
I think that tracks. Yeah.
I want your mouth.
I think that goes. And it is, again, it's the sort of thing that he's thinking to himself, so he's not actually saying it out loud. So there's not an opportunity for her to be like, my what? Bitch, please, don't call it that.
Oh, I love the idea of her just being like, oh, okay, you know what? I was like into this for a second, but now that I know what's happening inside your head, I don't like this. Nope. I will hard pass. Sorry.
Listen, I feel like low key, if we knew more about what was happening inside a man's head when they were fucking us, we would all like opt out so quickly.
Listen, that is a thing. Miles, if you're listening to this, and I don't think you are, just like plug your ears for the next minute. That is a thing in the Sookie Stackhouse books that she can't fuck normally because her power makes it so that she can hear everything dudes are thinking about her, whether it's like kind of objectifying or like not approving of some way that she looks or just something gross. She just hears it and it completely ruins everything. So she just doesn't fuck because it's just ruined.
I remember that. Like, I remember that from the show.
Sounds like it would be a real big problem, actually. Yeah, I would hate that.
Yeah, I think on the show they kept it limited to, like, they didn't go into, like, what it would be like for her to have sex, because I think they were pretty sure about making sure that she was a virgin in the show for...
And she's not in the books.
Yeah. But so what they did to illustrate that is just how it would be for her existing, like, working and being able to hear what everybody is saying about her. And especially the men, just like every time she walked by, they'd be like, oh, I want to... And then say, like, the most disgusting fucking thing. Yep. I want to soak your tits in mayonnaise and like, or something awful.
God, that's right. I forgot about the mayonnaise thing. Oh, God. I really, look, I can have some filthy thoughts. I'm not going to lie. But some of y'all out here are just doing shit to be weird. And you know it. You know it. So I'll be honest about it. Not to kink shame, but like a little bit. Just a little. Because I will admit, some of my shit, I'm also like, girl, what the fuck? Where did that come from? Get therapy. Anyway.
But then other shit, you're just like, you know what? You could have... I'm all for open communication and sharing your authentic self, but also some shit, keep
that shit to yourself.
Only share it with those closest to you that you are on the same page with, because the rest of us are just like, what?
I love hearing the ways in which people talk about sex and like. Either the euphemisms that they use or the things that they like tend to focus on, because sometimes it'll be shit that just does not matter to me, and I'm like, really? And then there'll be like jokes. There's a storyline in Parks and Rec where the character Ron Swanson is very easily manipulated by a couple of his ex-wives, and they're both named Tammy. And yes, his mother is also named Tammy, but what's the big deal? He doesn't get it. But one of them is like a sex maniac. And at one point, people are trying to tell him, Ron, you have got to stay away from her. What is happening to you? And he's trying to tell her, I'm not coming with you tonight. No, we're not doing it. They told me that you were bad for me. And she says, babe, they're just jealous of the things that I get to do to you and your face. It was such the things I get to do to your body and face. And there was something about her just saying and face separately and specifically that really meant something. It really like evoked many images, and I just fell out because that's never how I would say it. But once you hear it, you're like, okay, I know what's happening. I know the dynamic in that bedroom for sure at this point. Anyway,
that's funny.
So he's doing the whole I'm playing a part, I have to prove myself. The proving had been so sweet, though. And Ygritte had gone to sleep beside him with her head against his chest, and that was sweet as well. Dangerously sweet. And I really like that moment of, yeah, fucking her is nice, but then she just, like, cuddled me.
Yeah.
And I really like that a lot.
Yeah. This is him starting to fall for her in, like, a real meaningful way. And we go through the next night and day, and it is the thing that's going on with the rest of the group, like the guys that are in charge. I love this little side bit too we get real quick of just like reminding us who's leading this group, and that it's two men who are both equally in charge, but they don't seem to understand that, and they don't like that the other is equally in charge.
Sure don't.
So there's this sort of like, I don't know, this internal power struggle that's happening in this larger group. And we find out that the one guy, Magnar, and then there's the other guy, I don't know if it's Steer or Steyer or whatever, but one of them is basically Mance's brother-in-law. He's what does he call him? He's
a good brother.
Yeah, Mance Rayder called the Dark Youth a pet of Val, who was sister to Dahlia, his own queen.
Right.
So it's giving nepotism, right? like this kid is, but also we find out though that this kid is really good at what he fucking does.
Yes.
Jon tells us that he's only like 18 or 19 or whatever the fuck, but he's been doing this shit for 8 years now. He's been over the wall a bunch of times. So he's not, like, insignificant. But still, the other guy, the Magnar, is not
resents
impressed.
his authority. He had brought 100 Thens, 5 times as many men as Jarl, and often acted as if he had the sole command. But it would be the younger man who got them over the ice, Jon knew. So yeah, this is when they start asking him like detailed questions about the way that patrols work, the timing of them, how many of them go at a time, and there's a mention of them using mules on patrols, which I don't remember if we like saw that firsthand when we were in that like at the wall with Jon. It may have just not come up, or maybe wasn't part of his duties, so it didn't matter. But I thought that was interesting because they're just a lot more sure-footed, which is part of why they're used on mountains and whatnot as well. But then they're like, all right, so how many? And he's like, well, they purposely make it so that you don't ever know how many. That's the point, is they even like move 100 men from here to there just to be like, well, we don't know how many men they have because we're trying to keep everybody from being in possession of all the facts. Yeah.
They change how many people go on patrol, when the patrols happen, the days they leave. Anything to keep the enemy on its toes so that they can't really be plotted against in that way.
Right.
And Jon had been thinking earlier when he was looking at the stars, I think, and thinking to himself, trying to figure out where exactly they were in relation to the wall and the different keeps or whatever. And he guesses too, but then from this conversation, because they ask him specifically about Stone Door, and he's like, oh, okay, so we're between these, this is where we are.
Right.
And it gives him an opportunity to understand exactly where he is. And then he starts talking about the numbers of people who are at each castle. And somebody is like, I think it's Jarl, who's like, This motherfucker is lying.
Jaro was not fooled. He's either lying or including those they lost on the fist. And, I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess they come across the fist. So, because I was going to say, I'm not sure that Jon even knows how many they lost on the fist, but I guess they see the bodies. So, he would have some idea of just how many of them didn't make it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Love too, Magnar is like, look, I know that for whatever reason, Mance is like listening to you. But I am not Mance, and I will fuck you up.
Yep.
So you had better tell me the truth, because I will find out anyway, and it will not go well for you. And there's something about just like, I'm not Mance that made me laugh a little bit.
And then when Jon is all salty about, like, don't fucking call me a liar and I'm not a crow, he, indicates that he might go for his sword. He flexes his sword hand or whatever. And the Magnar is like, you know what? Just go now. I'm done with you. And I'll find out how soon how many people there actually are, because we're going to be there in a minute anyway. So he still lets Jon go. And I'm like, that's kind of like Mance, though. You just got done telling me that you're not like Mance, but
you're not wrong.
You're doing some Mance shit right now.
Maybe he's just like, well, we don't have proof yet. But once I see that there's like way fewer than you said, then we'll have a reckoning. Exactly.
It's the same sort of thing. And that's kind of like following Jon all the way through this particular adventure, right? It's just the sort of, nobody is 100% convinced that he is really, a traitor to the Watch and all that shit. Like, it's like they're not buying it, but they're letting it happen.
Right.
Because they can afford to, until they can't afford to. And I don't know, and that the motivation behind that, I think I'm not hung up on it, like it's important, but I don't feel like I fully grasp the motivation. It feels to me like Jon must be considered useful in a way.
Yeah. Because Mance says that when they're like, I don't want to bring this dude. He's like, well, he works for the people we're going to attack. So if you don't find a use for him, you are fucking bad at your job. Yeah, and that's what I like. Like, they keep waiting for him to be more useful than he has been. Like, there's a real moment where there's going to be like, oh, it's a good thing we got that Jon Snow with us, because they're asking him for information, which is to put him to use, right? But then they don't trust that information. They don't believe him. So, poor Jon. After this encounter, he goes looking for Ygritte, who has disappeared, and he finally finds her in this grotto, in this tunnel that he goes down. And this was definitely in the show. Yeah, this is I think in the show, this is like the first time that they have sex. Was in the cave. Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah. I feel like that might, because in the book, they're just fucking going at it under the fucking cloaks, surrounded by the whole goddamn camp. At one point, somebody walks by and is like, don't make me throw a pail of water on you. So for this show, they chose this moment to be like the moment, because we're still hung up on losing our virginity in this culture, and it has to be special and right and meaningful, and, soft music playing in the background, and all that other shit. Sorry. That got away from me a little bit. Sorry. Oh, man. It's true, the total contempt. We have such a fucking obnoxious, ridiculous sort of ceremony around, like, deflowering. It's so not based in reality, and it's the expectations that we set on people, and we just fuck up young minds for no reason with this bullshit. Yep. I remember I don't know if you went through it, because you started dating and having sex earlier than I did, but the sort of
pressure of making sure, like, your first time is with the right person at the right place, and it means all the things, you know?
There was a little bit of that, but I'll tell you what. I was too horny for it to really, like, break through. It was sort of a static in the background of, like, I know that's a thing people talk about, but the main transmission that managed to penetrate the static was, yeah, but dick, though. So, you know, mileage may vary.
So, she tells him this banana pants story of Gorn and Gendel.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like a horror
He
movie.
knows the story already.
Yeah,
but
but
it's like
she has
a different kind of version.
Yeah, he's familiar with the names and everything, and he says something like, "Oh," and finishes the story about Gendel one day he died, and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
No, sir, that is not what happened. What happened is just 30 times worse than just dying."
Yes.
Yeah, so they tunnel under the wall and then get sort of like trapped, right?
It's like he in the escape, he tries to go back into the tunnels to get out because they are just outmatched. There's too many of the crows. So yeah, he tries to, like, his brother who was in charge of them, Gendel, died. Or no, Gendel didn't die. His brother died, who's the one who, like, was in charge of the...
Yeah, Gorn
so,
was
like, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Gorn was the king beyond the wall, and they are the ones that led the free folk through the tunnel, and they came out, and Winterfell was there waiting for them, and that's when the battle happened. Mm-hmm. And then they try, like you said, they try to retreat back into the tunnels, and they get lost. I guess they take a wrong turn.
Yeah, because he doesn't know the way the same as his brother did, and winds up in a spot where it's a dead end, and then they turn, and he thinks he knows the way this way, and it's a dead end, and then by then, the torches are going out, and they just wind up in, like, complete pitch blackness, and it's a wrap.
Yeah.
They never find their way.
I got confused with the other story they tell, which is the one of Arson Isaacs.
Oh,
and
right.
He's the one that was digging through the wall, and his tunnel gets found, and they end up just fucking trapping him in there and sealed the way behind him. And so that's, yeah. So those are both two pretty terrible fucking stories.
Yeah. And the legend is that you can, like, still hear him down there. On cold, stormy nights, you can hear his axe cutting into the ice. I think John says something about how Ed swears that he has heard that.
No, I think you're right. I'm trying to see, where is it? Yeah, Dolores says that you can press your ear up against the wall and you can hear it. Yeah, of course that's Ed.
But yeah, so Gendel's children are the ones that are still trapped. There's, like, a legend that they live on somehow. And she's like, and when they find you, they're always hungry. And I was like, ooh, it's a good way to end that. It's a spooky ending.
All that's missing is her going, ooh.
She's got the torch under her face. Ow! Sorry. That's what it looks like. If it were right under your face. That's what I'm saying. A bit of a torch humor for you.
Ma'am.
So anyway, this is when she gets naked, and he is talking about how much he loves all of her, and gets on his knees and is just kissing her all over, and then all of a sudden he's like, you know what? And he goes down on her, and she is, like, bashful afterward in a way that she never normally is. And she's like, is that, like, a thing you all do over there? Because I never had that. And he's just like, I don't know if it is. I just did it because I felt like it. And she's like,
you seem to enjoy it, so. She is like, all right, well, no one taught you to do that? Like, and that's when she realizes that he hasn't fucked anybody before.
Yeah.
Which I feel like she should have already known that.
I thought she did.
I thought she even mentioned
it. You don't know anything, so I'll show you. I thought it was just like, well, I know that you're a virgin, but I guess it was just her being like, well, you clearly don't know what you're doing, buddy.
You're out here just doing it wrong, and no one has had the courtesy to tell you.
Yep.
So this is the moment she gets to, like, oh, you've never been with anybody else. And he asks her about herself, you know. Mm-hmm. And he asked her, was she a virgin? Which she is like, you know good and fucking well I'm not no goddamn virgin. Get out of here. Mm-hmm.
I really did enjoy that. Her just being like, come the fuck on.
She's
I'm
like,
19.
How could I be? Like, use some goddamn sense.
Yep.
Basically,
she's like, look at me.
Oh my God.
Do you think this is a virgin? I doubt it. And I was like, good for you.
Yeah, she does. I am 19 and a spear wife and kissed by fire. How could I be maiden? So she tells the story about the first time, and this dude, no good.
No bueno.
And then she has to correct Jon about, like, why it wouldn't be Longspear, which Jon is really relieved by that it wasn't. Because she tells the story, like, she just says it was a guy who 5 years ago who was in my village, you know, blah blah blah, and when he tried to come back and steal me, Longspear broke his arm, and then Jon was like, oh, so it wasn't Longspear then. Phew.
Yeah, because he's like, I like that guy, and I don't want to be jealous of him having fucked you sometime.
Which which I actually thought was, like, surprisingly self-aware for someone at Jon's age around this, you know, kind of conversation around sex and feeling territorial and jealousy and all that stuff. Yeah. So, I don't know. That was kind of, I was like, oh, look at Jon understanding how his emotions would work in that way. Like, not enough to be like he could overcome his emotions and be in control and not have to feel jealous, even if it was Longspear. But at least he's acknowledging that he would have felt a way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So this is when she talks about, like, well, you got to pick people from outside your village, and he brings up Craster, and she's like, Craster's just a fucking maniac, dude.
And he's one of yours. We don't claim him. That was my favorite part of that whole conversation.
Yes. She's just like, yeah, he came from up there. Y'all are the ones that have real weird fucking attitudes about sex that we don't understand. You make it way more complicated than it needs to be. You just decide to bail on people. It's just very messy.
Yeah. And I like, too, the inclusion that not only is Craster terrible and in the sort of feelings around sex that exist in the Seven Kingdoms is so different from the Wildlings, but she also says Craster's cursed, and he's cursed because his father was a crow who stole a woman and then left her and ran back to the castle. And, you know, I mean, the Wildlings are not here for deadbeat dads, I guess. That's not how they get down.
And that's the right way to be. Appreciate it. Unless you're Nick Cannon for some reason, then suddenly everybody is just like, well, you know, he just has the money, so it's fine.
Isn't it wild how people just decide that as long as you have enough money in your bank account, that's all it takes?
Yep.
It is such a startling disconnect from, I mean, people who I generally think are reasonable about other things honestly come out of their mouth and say, well, he has enough money to have as many kids as he wants. You cannot be... I'm not getting into a whole thing. But no, it is not just about how much money you have, raising 10 or however many it's up to now in different homes scattered across, you know.
It's like insulting to fatherhood to say that that's all it takes. If you just, like, have the money, that's being a dad. Like, that's rude, actually.
It really... That's the thing about so much of, you know, patriarchy and even misogyny and why people need feminism, even though that's one of my least favorite words, is because the way that, you know, fatherhood gets shortchanged in so many ways that, like, you're expected to do the least.
Yep.
But that is a disservice to you as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, holding the bar so low doesn't do you any good either. Ugh.
Yep.
I'm babysitting my own kids. Like, what? You can't babysit your own. What? You ever? I can't do that. I'm babysitting the kids this weekend, sir.
All right. So he wants to go at one point because this torch is starting to go out, and she's like, "Are you a little afraid of these hungry children running around in the dark? It's no big deal." I'm like, "Well, you told a pretty scary story, Grit. That's pretty creepy. And I feel like that's kind of on you." But and then she's like, "Why don't you try that thing one more time?" And yeah, there it is. With your mouth, the Lord's kiss, and I could see if you liked it any. And that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, I guess they don't go down on each ship.
Yeah. I think you're the thing about like how practical it is, you know, where they live and how cold it is, you know, might have something to do with it. But I don't know, man. They got all these caves and tunnels and shit up here apparently, and now I'm not buying that story so much.
That's fair. So the chapter ends with her saying, "I don't ever want to leave this cave." And he's like, "Same."
Yeah.
But he meant a different cave. Lol.
Man. All right. We have to lay some ground rules or something.
I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Did you ever see Bulworth?
I did when it came out, but not since then. And that came out like 25 years ago. So I have very little recollection.
There's a point at which one of the women calls it the nappy dugout.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never heard that. And when he raps and he includes that, I was just like, oh my God, what is this? What a weird fucking movie that was.
That's, that's something that you would hear in like hip hop from around that time.
I had never heard it. And it was a true moment.
Yeah, it's a line in a Tribe Called Quest song, a Fife line, I think. But, that's the movie with Warren Beatty and Halle Berry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a weird movie.
Real weird.
Only memory I have is a church scene, and they're talking about, like, all the menthol cigarettes in the billboards and shit.
I don't remember that.
There's a whole, like, thing about how menthol cigarettes in, like, 40s and shit are targeted and advertised to black communities, and how you don't see those types of advertising once you go out into either more affluent white communities or the suburbs. Like, the advertising simply does not exist. And every once in a while somebody will share that clip today,
really,
on social media, because it has sort of the veneer of like getting it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that when you first hear it, you're like, oh, wow. But then after some, you know, deeper reflection, you're just like, yeah, that's like surface level shit.
Yep. Yeah, that's like that Aaron Sorkin monologue about how, like, America isn't the greatest country in the world, but we used to be. Yeah, and it's like, I've seen so many people share that, and it's like, no, we didn't used to be then either. Like, we certainly haven't improved, but we have been trash. We have stayed trash. Like, our policies are worse, but even those policies were not great.
The one thing we have been consistent about is how trash we are.
Yep, the bar is so low that just bare minimum caring for our people is seen as like this ideal time in history, and it's just honestly kind of pitiful. Anyway, okay, so Daenerys. This is the one. This is the Dracarys chapter, kids.
Yeah.
How was it to read it versus watching?
I really enjoyed reading it. I wasn't sure I would, because the moment on the show is pretty fucking iconic, you know. But I have to say, I enjoyed reading this. I don't remember the finer details on the show. On the show, they didn't know she was going to do this either. Like, no one in her group knew she was planning this.
Right.
But somehow, reading it, I felt much more kind of like really thinking she was going to sell her dragon. If that makes sense. Like I really bought it.
Yeah.
And I don't think
So
I don't.
they.
Yeah, like I. Oh my
dra-
god,
the
ma'am.
dragon? They really bought it.
But I don't think that worked for me on this show that way. I don't know if it was. I can't remember why, but I never really thought that she was like legit gonna like sell her dragon on the show. I didn't know what was gonna happen, but But this had me really feeling like, oh shit, this is different in the book. She really is gonna sell her dragon. And then, of course, she does not. And then I feel like just a giant, like, fucking dodo bird.
Yeah, and she's like, I really do enjoy that she is keeping it secret from everybody else so that there's a veneer on all of this of just disapproval. Her own people being kind of like, I cannot believe you're doing this. So it feels a lot more real to these masters.
Yep.
Because her own people are advising her not to do it.
And even, like, acting up, like, in front of them. Whitebeard has to be, taken out because he just can't stand this. And is pleading with her to change her mind in public. Which everybody knows you cannot fucking go against the family in front of strangers. Like, everybody knows that. But, she, what was the other thing? On the show, it's just fucking crassness.
Yeah, there's no, like,
here,
group.
She takes out, like, 8 plus some extras of, like, the most powerful masters in the city. All at once.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. Because they all gathered because it's, like, the deal is that the profit from the Unsullied is like divided amongst them all in some way because they all participate in like collecting the boys and training them.
Yep, they all have their individual businesses that they run and their slaves that they sell and all that shit. But the Unsullied is like a group project. And in order to have as many as that she wants to buy, as many Unsullied as she's saying to buy, he has to bring in like everybody else in town. I love too that like when she's talking about the masters that have congregated for this, they all seem to have like the same name. There's like 4 or 5 Grazdans.
Yeah, she says something specifically like, Sandy told me their names and I do not remember at all. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, she really and like I love too because afterwards you're just like, oh well, yeah, of course it didn't matter that she learned their names, did it? But at the time when you're reading it, because she had been so methodical about learning everything she can about the people that she's dealing with, that I was like, she can't keep their names straight. That doesn't seem like her. She's very smart and very observant. But then, that shit turned out not to matter at all. And this haggling goes on for the longest time.
Yep.
It is much longer than it is in the show. And there is... this happens in... I can't remember exactly, but in this chapter here... She doesn't have to include her dragon until, like, the very last bit of the haggling.
Right.
Because she is offering up her ships. She's offering up everything that's on the ships and wants to buy more and more Unsullied. She wants to even buy the children who aren't even trained yet. She wants to buy ones who haven't killed their first slave baby yet. And they are just like, how, though? We've seen what you brought with you. We've been on your ships. We've counted everything. And you just do not have enough. So it's just done really well. It's so drawn out until it's finally like you feel like Grazis is just telling other people, see, I told you she was desperate and foolish. She'll do anything. And you're reading like, yeah, she really is willing to do anything. And then they go home and she's so like restless the night before and then she has that dream. I wasn't sure how this was going to end. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Dracarys right at the end of this chapter or maybe that was going to be like a later chapter. I wasn't sure.
Ah, okay.
But then it all worked out.
Well, that's kind of fun though. I kind of enjoy the fact that you, despite like knowing what was going to happen, you were still not really sure of yourself.
I was like, maybe it doesn't happen right at the same moment, Because I don't remember the setup, but I feel like when she shows up to make her purchase, Drogon is already part of the deal, as opposed to like promising him and then going home to sleep and then delivering him the next day. You know
I don't remember. Yeah,
I can't remember either, but I don't remember there being that space in between. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And here we get that. We get a night of being like, she said she would do this thing, and then she goes home, and literally everyone is like, you cannot do this thing. She is distraught, and I'm thinking, she doesn't seem like she wants to do this, you know? She seems like she's really upset, and she's really, like, torn apart about having to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, shit, maybe she fucking does it. That's why this is so emotional.
This is what is sort of interesting about the contrast between the show and the books, because in this scene in the show, it was, I thought, really well done. When I watched it, I remember that me and Brendan like fist pumped and screamed at the end because it was the finale of season 2, I think. They have it happen earlier in the show. They speed things up with her a little bit. And it was just extremely satisfying. But it's done really differently, whereas you say, you know she's not going to do it. It's projected a lot more that she has contempt for these guys and she's got a plan and that there is something up. And it's just really interesting to see the difference in the way that George does things in the books, where you get the internal monologue, so you get more of like the uncertainty, and it just adds a flavor to it all.
Right.
That feels more complex and interesting.
And that's the thing, too, that shook me about the chapter, is because unlike the show, we are in her head in the book. So at any moment, she could have just thought to herself, well, I know I'm not fucking giving this dragon away, so whatever. But she never thinks that. We never get clued in, which part of me, now that we're talking about it, part of me is just like, well, how realistic is that? If we're in somebody's POV and they have a plan hatched, you know, and they never once, you know, think to themselves, well, why am I so upset and crying? I know I'm not giving this dragon away, so what am I even doing right now? But yeah, we never get any moments of like any indication that she is not about to sell her dragon. What
do you think about the...
So I think what actually all the emotion that she's going through and the fear and the crying and everything is much more tied to what she's planning on doing and whether she thinks it's like, is it the right thing to do? Can she pull it off? Will it be successful? You know?
Yeah.
Does she have like the courage to go through with this plan? You know? Does she have a right? I know I don't want to, let me stop for a second. I think there's also, like, she is certain that these people deserve to die. They are cruel masters and they deserve to die. But she's also, like, outside of the fucking House of the Undying, she hasn't really... She didn't even really sick the dragons on anybody for that. They kind of, like, came through. Because she was in peril, right?
In which instance? In the House of the Undying?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that they just came... and they saw she was in distress, basically. And they were like, oh, no, you don't.
Right. So this is, like, her actually using them as weapons. For, I think, maybe the first time.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's, you know, a big deal. That's her stepping into the role that I guess she clearly believes she belongs to, you know, Mother of Dragons and all that shit. But still, it's a big deal. She's going from, these are my beautiful pets that make me special and will make me powerful, to, I'm about to use this power for the first time. And that's fucking heavy. But yeah, because I'm reading it and I'm thinking all of this emotion and being distraught and being unsure about the choice she's making. I'm thinking the choice that she's waffling on is the choice to sell the dragon.
Right.
Where maybe the struggle is more about, what are we about to do now? Are we ready for what we're about to do? And then she has that fucking dream.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's the dream that she's on a dragon. And she's destroying an army made of ice. Which, Who knows what that could be about?
Could be anything. I couldn't even
anything.
Right? Like I wouldn't even know where to start guessing what that could be about.
And then she has like a weird vision, it seems like, because she thinks Quaithe is in the room, but none of the women that sleep in the room with her notice that she's there. They don't hear anything. They don't react. Mm-hmm. So it seems pretty clear this was like a weird sort of psychic vision. But Quaithe says, to go north, you must go south. To go forward, you must go back. To go west, you must go east and touch the light and touch the shadow. What do you think of these? I hesitate to say prophecies, more like advice, suggestions, guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you know, you have to keep in mind, like, you know, having the show, even if I can't remember the finer points, you know, I did experience the whole run of the show, and there's a lot of stuff that, you know, is kind of just like nestled in my brain that I forget about. So with that, then it's kind of like, oh, all right, well, we know she's trying to head west. It's saying that in order to do that, you have to go east first. And I remember from the show that she kind of goes east even further than where she is and kind of gets like stuck there for a little while. So, and then to go forward, you must go back, and to touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. I don't know. I just don't know. This is not my jam, y'all. I'm probably never going to give anybody a satisfying guess about what a prophecy means. That's just not my. It's not my jam.
Yeah, I want to let everybody know that Austin, who sends notes, he has some theories, but I think I'm not going to share them with you just because it's not. What happens in the show isn't exactly a giveaway, so it feels like this is a spoiler for you.
Okay.
But Austin shares the notes completely in the spoiler channel on Discord. So if y'all want to see what his assertions are that each of these means, check out the spoiler channel, because he's pretty good about like posting those almost immediately after I post that a new episode is up. So, yeah, if you're interested in seeing that, get on that Discord, baby. I always put the link in the show notes. So, okay, so she, as you say, lots of sort of agonizing over what to do, whether she's doing the right thing, this dream, this thing with Quaithe. And then we have this kind of fun bit where after they've made the agreement, she comes and brings as much as they were able to carry of the items that were on the ships. Right. And it's a big list. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I forgot to say that when they make the deal, before they bring all the goods to actually finish the trade, that she gets Miss Sandy as they just throw her in the lot, which is just like, here. Have a bonus lady. Yep. Which was wild to me because she seems invaluable. Why would you just give her away? And it wasn't like Daenerys demanded or asked for her. I can't remember how that goes in the show either. I feel like Daenerys asked for her. But I don't remember.
I think she did too. That sounds familiar.
Right? But in the book, they're just like, yeah, take her too. And I just don't understand it.
I think that maybe being like multilingual isn't as unusual in this world. So it's more that like she's gifted for being so young, but they're gonna be other
people. But she's
who
not
can
special.
speak the languages. Yeah.
And you know what? That's the thing too. Maybe like I answer my own fucking question when I say it, because it doesn't matter how valuable she is. Ultimately, she's just a slave, and they are only going to be able to hold but so much value. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's very easy to just toss her in the lot. So asked and answered.
And he also is framing it. It's unclear how like sincere this is, but just basically he thinks that Daenerys can't speak Valyrian, so this is a way for him to ensure that she can actually control the Unsullied. because they don't necessarily speak the common tongue or whatever it is. That
That's exactly what he says. He's like, they're going to learn it quick enough, but in the meantime, I'll let you, you can take this one as our gift to you, a token of a bargain. Yeah.
So I want to read this list of things because I just found this so weird. 6 bales of tiger skins, 300 bolts of fine silk, jars of saffron, jars of myrrh, jars of pepper and curry and cardamom, an onyx mask, 12 jade monkeys, casks of ink in red and black and green, a box of rare black amethysts, a box of pearls, a cask of pitted olives stuffed with maggots, a dozen casks of pickled cave fish, a great brass gong and a hammer to beat it with, 17 ivory eyes, which I'm like, and a huge chest full of books written in tongues that Dany could not read, and more and more and more.
This is all the shit that was on the ships that she got from Illyrio, right? This is all the stuff he was intending on trading.
So I love too that this guy is like, my suggestion to you is to go and sack some neighboring cities real quick. And you can take those people here and we'll sell them and we'll give you a real good price on them. And that will ensure there's another batch of Unsullied on the way. And it'll just work out really well for all of us. Yeah. The Unsullied will get a little bit of training.
Exactly.
We'll get some plunder. Everything will be really good for us all. And I was just like, man, these guys are brutal. So she gives him the lead for Drogon, which is attached to his neck, leash-like, and then makes sure to be like, is it done? Are they mine now? Or is this official?
The trade. She hands off the leash and he hands off the fucking whip that he's been carrying. And we get a description of it, the thing he's called the Harpy's Fingers. And it is a very sort of elaborate, gilded little thing. It's black dragon bone carved and inlaid with gold. Each lash is tipped in, or what does it say? Each one tipped by a gilded claw. And then the gold pommel was a woman's head with pointed ivory teeth.
Yeah.
And he named it. He named his whip the Harpy's Fingers because, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets up and yells to all of the Unsullied, you bitches are mine now, in Valyrian. And this dude turns and is like, wait, what?
Only one. It's the oldest Gradsdan is like, tips his head and she's like, oh, he's hearing me. Everybody else is not listening.
Yeah.
But this one old guy is just like, wait, what? That's also a really cute moment with Miss Sandy when she asks Miss Sandy a question and then she answers her and then realizes, wait. That was very, very funny. Yeah, and that guy realizes that she's speaking in Valyrian, but it doesn't fucking matter now. It's too late.
Too late!
Yeah.
And she keeps thinking about how nervous she is in terms of, like, how Rhaegar must have felt. And so when it's time to begin this, she says to herself, it's time to cross the trident, which I kind of like.
Yeah. He is over there pulling on the chain, and she looks and she goes, you're in difficulty. Having a little trouble over there. What's going on? And he's like, he won't come.
I love it so much.
So good.
This dragon is like, the fuck are you? What did she... No, I don't think so.
I can't believe that y'all motherfuckers thought that somebody could just give you a dragon. Like, did you think we just went wherever we were told to go? We're fucking dragons. Oh my! Can you imagine thinking the audacity of thinking that?
I can't imagine. I do that with my cats all the time, thinking shit that I should know better about.
But yeah, she's just like she says the line. Say the line.
I like, though, that the first thing that she does is not, like... Because I always thought of it as her just saying a dragon is no slave, and then she says Dracarys. But it's a dragon is no slave, and then she whips him across the face.
She sure does.
This thing, which I had forgotten, and that, for some reason, increased my respect for her a great deal, because while that's a very cruel thing, this is her being willing to get her hands dirty very personally, in a way that just, I was not expecting of her. Tears his fucking face open. The harpy's fingers had torn his features half to pieces with one slash, but she did not pause to contemplate the ruin. Drogon, she sang out loudly, sweetly.
I love that
all
so
her
much.
fear forgotten. Dracarys!
I love that. It's so, different, right? This moment, it hits so much differently than... I don't know, you guys. The show was great. I agree with, it was fucking iconic. It's a fantastic moment on the show. It's powerful. The way she says it, it's like an order, It's like a weapon. But this is also very, very good.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the fact that it's like, come get your dinner. Hey, put it out. Come here. I don't know. There's something that's amazing.
Yeah, and I just like that it's all her fear forgotten, because so much of what I was reading that I was misinterpreting was fear. She was afraid of what the next step she had to take. Which I guess is really what is happening with most of our characters throughout the course of these books, right? Is knowing that they are going to have to try to figure out whether they can rise to the occasion of whatever the next steps are.
Right.
Will they be able to do it? Will they be able to stand up to it? Will they be able to follow through, make themselves do a thing? Are they, or will they fail? And she had the night before, a real, can I do this thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I capable of this thing? And then we fucking get her doing it.
So good.
And it's awesome.
So Drogon breathes fire into his face. His eyes melted and ran down his cheeks, and the oil in his hair and beard burst so fiercely into fire that for an instant the slaver wore a burning crown twice as tall as his head. The sudden stench of charred meat overwhelmed even his perfume, and his wail seemed to drown all other sound. Then the plaza of punishment blew apart into blood and chaos. The good masters were shrieking, stumbling, shoving one another aside, tripping over the fringes of their tokars in their haste. Drogon flew almost lazily at Krasnus, a black wings beating, as he gave the slaver another taste of fire. Iri and Jiki unchained Viserion and Rhaegal, and suddenly there were 3 dragons in the air. When Dany turned to look, a third of Astapor's proud demon-horned warriors were fighting to stay atop their terrified mounts, and another third were fleeing in a bright blaze of shiny copper. One man kept his saddle long enough to draw a sword, but Jogo's whip coiled about his neck and cut off his shout. Another lost a hand to Rakaro's Arak and rode off reeling and spurting blood. Aegon sat calmly notching arrows to his bowstring and sending them at tokars. Silver, gold, or plain, he cared nothing for the fringe. Strong Belwas had his Arak out as well, and he spun it as he charged. I just love this. Everybody, spurred into action. I don't think any of them knew what she was planning to do either, but they just take her lead immediately, and they're like, okay.
And they're just ready. Everybody is just was just sitting on go. So they are all able to jump into action immediately. And the fucking Astapori are unprepared. And they start to call for the Unsullied to come protect them.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Defend your masters. But guess what?
Guess what, bitch?
And she then yells to all the Unsullied that she tells them to slay the masters, Slay the soldiers, slay every man who wears a tokar or holds a whip, but don't harm any children under 12, and take the chains off of every slave
13,
you
though,
see.
fuck 'em.
And I don't really feel like we need to go into a whole thing about it, but they do have a moment in this chapter where we are, because this whole deal is taking place at the Plaza of Punishment, which we hadn't really been to yet. We had been to the Plaza of Pride, I think it's called.
Ooh, I don't remember.
Where the big harpy statue is.
Right.
But they're at this other place, and this place is terrible. And it is where they have all of these slaves on display. And I remember from the show that this was like a really difficult moment.
Yeah.
People are nailed, and like skin has been peeled off, and it's just awful, awful, awful. So we get this sort of reckoning with the slavers after having been really shown the depravity, so it feels even more like, you're fucking right, burn them all.
Exactly.
And then when she tells the Unsullied to also strike the chains off of every slave you see, this whole crowd, this whole area is teeming with slaves that have shown up to watch the, like we're getting dragons. Like, who doesn't show up to the plaza to see the dragons, Yeah. So there's a lot of fucking people here.
Yeah, I really do love all of them, like, pleading for the Unsullied to save them. And at one point, when Ricardo put an arrow through Grasden's mouth, the slaves holding his sedan chair broke and ran, dumping him unceremoniously on the ground. The old man crawled to the first rank of eunuchs, his blood pooling on the bricks. The Unsullied did not so much as look down to watch him die.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Life comes at you fast.
Yeah. And that was the thing, too. There was a conversation earlier when Missandei goes home or back to the ship with Daenerys. They talk about what to do with the Unsullied once she takes the Iron Throne. And there's concern. Daenerys is like, for the people who are going to fight for me, the knights will just go back to their castles and their keeps and their wives and their lives. Where do the Unsullied go? And there was a moment of being like, well, if I air quotes free them, like, I don't want to sell them because somebody could just use them to come and take the throne right back from me.
Right.
But then they can't just go have a life. And Missandei is like, well, you could instruct them to fall on their swords. That's a thing that they would do. And that's the thing about this moment with the Unsullied, not so much as looking down, is that is as satisfying as it is. That only happens because they don't belong to them anymore. They belong to her now. So it's satisfying, but there is a hint of, like, it's not like they got to choose to not give a fuck about this man dying.
Yep.
It's simply that the ownership has changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, also in that moment where she says you could tell them to fall on their swords, Daenerys is like, yeah, but I see in your face that you would rather I did not do that.
That's
What's
right.
up?
Right.
And Missandei says 3 of them used to be my brothers.
Yeah.
And there's something about her saying used to be my brothers. She doesn't say are my brothers. That really, like, hammers home. They're just not, like, people anymore the same way.
She says at one point, I think at the beginning of that conversation, she says to Daenerys, she's like, yeah, but they're not men. Like, you need to understand. And the other thing that Missandei keeps doing is that whole way that they speak, where they don't refer to themselves as I, it's just this one one is this one is that. And she does that, but then, like, corrects herself to make herself say I, because, Daenerys has given her freedom and told her she can stay in her employ or go back to her family or whatever. And you see that struggle of trying to learn how to, I mean, it's still new. I mean, it's only been a couple hours, so, but just the sort of, like, how to switch the way you think of yourself from being a thing that belongs to someone else to being an autonomous, person. and how you have to you change even your language. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. But all in all, satisfying as fuck. I'm not gonna lie.
And she gives him Sandy the opportunity to like leave too. And Miss Sandy is just straight up, I don't have anywhere to go. So I'll stay here.
She's like, you could go back to your mother and father. Which again, for Daenerys, like the full ramifications of being enslaved doesn't really connect. Because you don't have that. You know? You don't just get to go home to your mother or father when you're enslaved because, hey, guess what? They're probably also enslaved. you know?
That's the thing that's sort of interesting to me is, like, I guess that they probably would be because the way that it works in this universe is that it's places that have been sacked and the people have been captured. Whereas, like, other stuff I read, people are made into slaves as punishments for certain things or as a result of, like, debts or stuff like that. So in that sense, you could be like, do you have any people to go back to? And they might. But in this world, it really would be unlikely.
That's the thing that about slavery in this world, as far as I understand it so far, is it is a mixture of sort of the slavery that we would have seen in antiquity and also a smidgen of chattel slavery, which is a much more modern invention. Where, because when we hear Krasnus talk a lot, especially when they're talking about killing the babies, when Unsullied had to kill the babies, right? He says explicitly they don't pay the mother, they pay the person who owned the mother and the baby. So in this world, we have people being born into slavery.
Right.
Which is not something that necessarily really existed on a grand scale, you know? Where, you know, you were, like, sacking and pillaging and capturing people and enslaving them because they were, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like a little bit of both in this world, which is an interesting choice for George Martin, I think. And I'm curious about that. Actually, now the more I talk about it, the more curious I am about that. Yeah. I could be wrong. I mean, like, I'm not an expert, obviously. You know, there's very well could be historic, examples of this type of slavery, and you know, maybe that's where he pulled it from. But I think it's generally understood that chattel slavery is a different beast than what existed before it became a thing. Yeah, I have no idea. I have not. I have no education in a lot of that arena, and especially because it seems like this would be something that he was like pulling from Eastern cultures, and even the little information that I have is mostly Western civilization. Yeah, same. I don't have a lot of education about the East. Yeah, sorry. Same. And even calling it the East. I know. I guess. You know what I'm saying? I do. I was debating how much I wanted to say. I'm just going to not say anything. Sometimes that's the best course. That's the thing. I'll still say like Middle East, and then I'll sort of pause and be like, it's just so difficult when I know something is going to be immediately understood, and that feels like it's easier, even though it's not really actually like technically correct or right anymore. Right. You know, one of the things that blew my mind when I was a younger person, I was maybe in middle school or maybe freshman of high school. When I learned, I had always heard the word, the Orient, right? And I know that the Orient does not apply. You're not supposed to use that to describe people. That's to describe, like, locations and objects. So, when I learned that there was Occidental, which meant exactly, like, could be used in the same way, it just referred to the West, my mind was blown. And I was just like, well, how come we don't why don't people call us Occidents? Like, what? That's so racist. Why isn't nobody? I never forget. I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I was just like, well, this is bullshit.
I'm an oxidant. Oh, that's not nice to say about yourself.
I'm just
I'm
like,
sure your parents are delighted to have you.
I was just like, why don't, I'm like, I was so surprised that I had never heard anybody say that. Like, even as an insult back, I was just like, you know, if I were an Asian person of Asian descent and somebody called me Oriental, do you know how fast I would fucking clap back with Occidental?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add about this this section before I wrap things up?
No, just that it was really good, and that moment was. I wasn't, like I said earlier, I wasn't sure if the book was going to be able to match the show, but I thought it did really well, in a very different way, but just as satisfying.
Agreed. All right. So before we wrap, I want to say hi to new patrons. There's only 2 new people this week, but thank you to Nate Failing and Kendra Woodfolk. Yay! Kendra Woodfolk. Woodfolk. That's a great last name. I really like that one. But thank you both very much for becoming patrons. You are helping to support me and helping me to support Rashawn. We both depend on this money in a very practical and real way.
It's true.
Very real and legally binding sense. So if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/unspoiled and become a patron. It would be hugely appreciated if you would. If you're somebody who is constantly waiting for these episodes to come out, and when we have to skip a week, is just like, oh, what am I going to do? If you are hooked on Unspoiled, just throw us $5 a month. Just go ahead. Just go ahead and do it.
Oh, yeah, you should totally do it. Just do it. I want to mention too, I forgot that, you know, not everybody listens to everything, so I should say it here as well. I want to thank everybody for their kind words and their generosity. It's funny because last week when we did A Song of Ice and Fire, we did it on Sunday, which is normally we record on Saturdays, but I had a thing on Saturday, so we moved it to Sunday. And I talked to you guys last week and made a couple jokes about the vet bills, you know, and all that for my cat Roscoe. But unfortunately, later that day after recording, we ended up losing her.
It was like hours after we finished recording, like 2 hours, guys.
Yeah. She
it was awful.
Got done recording. I ran to the store. It was going about 45 minutes. And I came home, and she was really bad. And we got her to the vet, you know, pretty quickly. And they let us know that was just going to be it. And so we had to say goodbye. But I just wanted to thank everybody for their kind words, and donations to the GoFundMe is really helpful. So I don't have to be stressed out about how much money it costs, because it costs a lot of money.
It was so expensive, you guys.
It was so expensive.
Oh my God. Even the cremation, I had no idea that it was that expensive. And Lord.
So I just wanted to thank everybody and let you know how much I appreciated it, and that it meant a lot. It meant a lot to both me and my husband. So thank you for that. And this community is just, you know, continues to surprise me and humble me, and I just am really grateful for you guys. So that's it for me.
If you guys are not aware what I'm talking about, or we're talking about, or what Rashawn's talking about, I made a GoFundMe for her the day that she lost Roscoe, and posted it in the patrons only group, the Facebook group, or the Facebook page, Twitter, and I put it in the announcements on Discord. So if you hadn't seen that and you want to contribute still, it's still up. You can find the link at all those locations. Probably the easiest place to find it will be in the Discord announcements. But anything that you contribute is going straight to Rashawn. I had been trying to get her to make one of these before everything with Roscoe even popped off, because she was having a hard time. So we have passed the goal, which is amazing. I can't believe how fast it happened. But if you want to contribute beyond the goal, all of that is still going to be put to very good use. So just, just for anybody who's kind of hearing about this for the first time and like, wait, what? You can go and find it and still help her out. So yeah, guys, it's been a rough fucking couple of years, man.
Yeah. But so I wanted to make sure I said it on both shows so that, especially because I was just talking about her to you guys last week. So
yeah.
All right, but that's it for me.
Alrighty. Well, guys, thank you all again so much for listening. I hope that you have been enjoying our coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.